Hi, and welcome to Unapologetically Me with your host, Kalila. I've been doing a whole lot of really crazy deep thinking, and the more I realize that we are all that exists within our individual reality, the more I realize that not only are we in control over our lives and our choices and what's happening around us, but we create it. We create all of these experiences. And one of the reasons is because that's what we're here for. We are the universe expressing itself through many different avenues and having all of these different interactions with itself, if you will, with this illusion of being separate. So you probably already understand, if you've been watching foo-hooey videos like I'm trying to make here, that there is no separateness. It's just an illusion. And everything is just waves, and it's mind-blowing to go down that rabbit hole. But at the same time, just by putting your toes in it, just kind of like just touching it and experiencing it a little bit, we get the sense that if I'm in a good mood, if I'm feeling very happy and I go out in the world, I'm going to be looking at those things that are resonating with that feeling of happiness. So I might pass by a couple arguing and just kind of blow it off and focus on the beautiful trees. Or I might even acknowledge their arguing as, wow, they're passionate about what they believe in, versus looking at it from the darker point of, had I been in a dark mood myself and out walking and saw that same couple arguing, I might have a whole narrative and reminds me of, a time that I was in an argument and how that made me feel and belittling, and I might let that experience ruin the rest of my day, keeping me in a very low vibration. Or I could just choose to see it as, that's two people that love each other, that are passionate about something, that are maybe not discussing it in a healthier way, by arguing out in public. But I don't have to let that affect my energy. I can still go on and look at the sun shining and the beautiful trees and the little birds chirping, children playing, whatever. I can focus on the things that are going to make me feel happy, because that's where my energy is at. And I'm not going to really notice even the things that don't. So it's not like they're not happening around me, but I might not even acknowledge them or see them. They might not just pop up in my radar. And that's how, when you're sitting with a group of people and they'll say, did you just see that? And you had a totally different experience because you weren't focused on what they were focused on in a different dimension, different energy level, if you will, whether it's lower or higher. If they said, wow, did you see that angel just step in front of us and save us, or save me from getting hit by that car? And they might say, no, I saw you jump back, which I thought was kind of weird the way you moved, but I didn't see anybody else there, kind of thing. So they're not going to see things, or we can't see things that don't exist within our vibration. And it's just so amazing to think about our interactions with each other, and what we hear and what we experience is truly unique to us and our perception of what everything means. And I noticed, as I was visiting with my granddaughters for the last couple of weeks, I guess it's been almost about 3 weeks I was there, just that time that I had with them, and about 2.5 weeks, not that it matters, but the time that I had with my granddaughters was very interesting, because I got to see things from their perspective. And being my age now and thinking that I am the same person that I've always been, because I haven't changed my suit per se. It's gotten a little older and some more bumps and bruises and scars and what have you, but it's still the same suit, right? I'm still the same person that was born back on my birthday, kind of thing. But I wonder if, by the exchange that I had with them, what was my mindset when I was their age? Now, I know the key points that happened during that time. So, like, my youngest granddaughter is 23. When I was 23, I took a trip to Sweden with my 5-year-old daughter and stayed there for a couple of years and got married and moved back to the States. And I mean, I had a very crazy time during that time. I was living in a foreign country and learning a new language. And for her, she's struggling to figure out work. Well, not, she's going to school and she's got her plans, but just navigating life. She's single. She has no children, no partner. Oh, she's having issues with her boyfriend. But you understand what I'm saying. It's just a totally different perception. But does that make me any braver or stronger or smarter than she? No, of course not. We're on different points on our own individual journey. My journey and her journey are not meant to be the same. So she shouldn't be trying to follow my footsteps. My daughter actually did that a little bit, where she was trying to do things that she knew that I had done in hopes of that making her into the person she thought of me as. Now, that was her version of who I was, not who I am myself, to me. But she had created this persona of who she saw me as, and she wanted to be more like that. And so she tried to follow in some of the same decisions that I made, choices, good or bad, right? Mistakes that we think of in the moment, but we learn from them. So she was trying to be on my path, and until she decided that, you know what, I'm supposed to be on my own journey, not my mom's journey, and let go of what she anticipated or thought she should be doing based on what I had done, and started living her own life. And so she's going like this with her little journey, ups and downs and side to sides and what have you, and sometimes round and rounds, as we visit lessons again and again to get to the next level of that lesson. So it's not like we're going on this flat plane, but it's kind of like spiraling up. We can't go back down to where I was here. I'll never fall back to that point, but I can fall back to a point where I had a similar feeling, but I still learned so much from that point to this point that I'll never be back there, if that makes sense. And so with all of that being said, I really got some really great insights from my granddaughters in that time that I had, and understanding that as we grow as individuals and we have our children and we teach our children the things that we felt were important, that they would need for their journey, like those little tools for their toolkit, so to speak, right? So while we do that, we're giving them a starting point that's higher than what, like, I start here and I learn and learn and learn, and then I have children, so they're getting the benefits of the things that I learned from here up as I teach them from what I've learned. Then they do the same with their children and then their children. So in that respect, we're supposed to help lift and raise above. We should never be going backwards in time. Yet, looking back in time is going to be crucial for our evolution, because we need to kind of go back to eating more simple. I mean, we've gotten off on a lot of viruses, if you will, in the program, right? And to look at this as the Matrix, and we look at ourselves as being simulations, if you will, like little computers. I like to think of it as like little computers. We have programs. Everything that we see, experience, hear about, read about, whatever, is putting data into our brains, into our program, if you will, our little computers. And we can get viruses, just like a computer does, where we get these bad programs or things that override our good programs that'll kind of like put a little tweak in it. So we need to kind of like go back and let go of some of those negative programs and pay attention to what programs we run within our little computer brains that we animate with these bodies and everything, right? But we can do that. We have that power. We get to choose our actions, our reactions to all circumstances. And we can choose to do something different. So let's say if I normally get upset when somebody cuts me off when I'm driving on the freeway, I can yell like I always did, or I can go, wow, they must be in a big hurry. I'll slow down. I'm not, and I'll let them go, and life goes on, and I'll just keep driving. I don't have to let it upset me. I got to change that program. That's one that I'm aware of. And I know there's plenty of programs that I haven't possibly noticed yet. And there's programs that are a little bit more difficult to change, to tweak. But the more we make those little tweaks, the more we realize how in control we really are of our reality. Because as soon as I made that little tweak to not letting cars bother me when they're on their speedy little roads or swerving, I'll just slow down and let them get ahead of me because I don't want to be near the potential accident, right? Sometimes I'll pass them up instead because I want to make sure that I don't have to get stuck behind it either. But I can do that, or I can I'm going to pull over and call the police, or do this, hey Siri, call the police and report this crazy driver. I mean, who knows what I could take it to, how far I could take it, and allowing it to upset me and control my moment. Or I don't have to. I can just go on my way, sing a little song, what have you. Every moment of our lives, every moment of every day, we get to choose how we're going to respond or react. And those choices, our free will, is what runs our programs. That'll change those negative programs to positive ones, or continue running negative programs. It's entirely up to us. It is entirely up to us. I can look at my situation where I'm at in my little tin can here out in Selma, Oregon, and look at all of the work that needs to get done. I came back from my trip with my granddaughters to having some problems with the hot water heater now and a potential leak, and so I got to get a hold of a plumber, and I need a contractor, and all of these things. And I can choose to look at that as like, oh my gosh, now I've got to do that, what? And get all upset about it. Or I can go, okay, well, I've got this. I've got a small instant water heater that I purchased a few months back, or actually almost a year ago now it's been. I can put that in. Perfect. That'll save me money. And I can look at the positive aspect of, okay, this needs to get fixed. That's one less thing that I'll have to worry about later on, right? Or I can look at it as the negative, like, how am I going to financially take care of all of this? And why don't I just sell this place as is and get out of it? There's so many different directions I can go with it. But I get to choose. It is entirely my choice if I'm going to be upset about it or not. I could choose to just totally disconnect the water heater, have no water heater at all, heat water on the stove or on my wood stove, and live that way. I don't need to let it bother me at all. If I don't have the money to fix it, I can still go on my life and not let it bother me. It might inconvenience me, if you will, having to heat water on the stove and fill it into the bathtub because I still want my nice hot baths, right? So I can see that as an inconvenience. I can also look at it as I'm getting a good workout, having to make those trips and having to wait and heat up big pots of water and what have you. But that's okay. That's just teaching me something different that I may need to know or need that lesson to help me grow. But I get to choose how I look at it. Same situation, but I get to choose if I'm going to see it as a potential lesson, potential gifts coming from it, or if it's just going to be all negative. If I'm just going to let it take me down to the depths of hell and, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And life sucks. And I'll just feed that narrative of life sucks. Or I can say life is amazing. Life is beautiful. Life is everything I choose for it to be. And it is. I made all my choices. I chose this place. I chose to be in Oregon. I chose to be having the people in my life that are in my life right now. I chose everything. And I can choose differently. Right now in this moment, I can choose differently tomorrow. It's all my choice. It's all your choice, how you interact with your reality. So that was one message that I really wanted to get out. In watching my granddaughters especially, it was fascinating to get a peek at what it would be like to be in my 20s as a young woman in America at this point in time versus when I was. When I was in my 20s, there still was no such thing as the internet. If the phone rang, we did have an answering machine that did have caller ID. I think they had caller ID back when I was in my 20s. Maybe not. But we did listen to the voice machine before we answered the phone. Almost always we'd screen our calls once we got that gift, right? Because prior to, you would answer the phone. If there was somebody potentially going to call that you didn't want to talk to, we would answer with an accent. And then they'd say, so-and-so there? And then we would like, oh, no, they're not here. Or, if it was they're calling for you and you didn't want to talk to them, like, no, sorry, wrong number, and hang up. And since they didn't have a caller ID on theirs, they didn't know if they accidentally didn't turn the dial or push the wrong button in the wrong sequence, right? So then they would call back, and then we would not answer because we knew it was that same person calling back. We had tricks. Nowadays, they've got cell phones that sit there and show you a picture, tells you the full name of the person or the business that's calling you. And you can always just text. We've got all FaceTime even, where we can see the person from far away and talk to them and see them. And it's just such a different time period. And then we've got the social media where we post about our lives, we post about our work, we post about things that we're passionate about, things that we want to share. Information is everywhere. It's like the currency nowadays is information. And that's what we're bought and sold online. Our presence, our intelligence, our thoughts is basically commodity now. Because if they know that I'm, as an example, interested in alternative healing versus the Western medicine, then they can sell me products. They can pinpoint, this is our demographics. This person's in our demographics for selling this product or that product. They might want to have this power drink that's all natural. Well, I don't do power drinks. So maybe they're going to try and sell me something else. But I mean, they have that information to sell to me based on what they know about me. And I try to keep that information somewhat, how would I say it? Kind of broad, I guess. I don't want it like too pinpointed where they know too much about me, so I don't keep it extremely personal, I guess would be the right way of explaining that. But still, just by things that I might like, things that I might share or read about, articles that I might search for, is all stored information that it can now be sold. That's just something crazy to think about. So, and thinking about what it would be like to be in my 20s, having all of that information about me, potentially for everybody to read and learn about me, and then 5 years down the road, I'm not the same person. We change constantly. Yet, if 10 years from then I'm looking for a job with a company and they look back at all of my past social media posts and stuff like that and everything that comes up about me, they might say, no, I don't want to hire this person because 10 years ago they were doing this, and that doesn't align with our business model. And so we can't be affiliated with somebody who has that in their background, even though that's not who the person is today. And we used to get judged for who we are in the moment. We'd go on an interview, we'd answer their questions. They got a feel for us because it was face-to-face. Now, interviews are not generally done face-to-face, at least for the first interview. And everything's done online, so you have this questionnaire first, and then they'll go through that. You can't just hand them your application and talk to the boss right then like we used to. And I was growing up and in my 20s, and I don't know about 30s. Yeah, even in my 30s, I remember interviews were quite often. You'd hand them the application and get the interview pretty much right on the spot, or at least talk to the manager who would, have a few questions for you, and then they would take it to the HR department or to the boss, whichever, depending on the type of business it was. It's just very different now. As soon as the internet hit, just really changed just how we do our lives just in general. I mean, obviously, I would never be making these videos when I was younger had I not had, because I didn't have the internet. So I wouldn't have this kind of presence for me in my 20s that my grandchildren, I find out just how much I can't talk when I'm making these videos. But yeah, it's just amazing how everything changes. And then from my perspective, I can go, oh my gosh, how awful it is for their lives to be controlled by this or that. But that's all they know. That's change. That's what we're calling progress, right? And however we want to look at it, change is the only constant. And for the most part, people, especially as we get older, are more resistant to change, which is why my generation, last of the baby boomers, is like, oh, social media and having all this internet stuff, oh, it's just crazy and blah, blah, blah. And we have a little bit of unease about working with it, most of us that I've talked to anyways, that I've noticed in videos and in person. But then we have these younger people that are just utilizing it and having fun with it and allowing themselves to have even more in-depth experiences, having friends that are like really good friends all over the world that they'll never meet possibly in person, but they still have a connection with because they met on a platform that they both were in sync with. That's awesome. I mean, it's just like mind-blowing to have a connection with somebody that you've never met. That's something that I don't know that I would be able to do. But for the younger generation, that's the norm. I think most people, even my daughter who's in her 40s, she has friends online that she's never met in person. And I think that's just amazing that true relationships can be formed with basically, I guess you could say, an AI. Now, I know that that's kind of stretching it because there is an actual person on the other side of that, but we don't see them. And if we do live chat where we have the video going and we do see them, it could just as well be an AI animation kind of thing moving around and talking to us because it's not in person. And something is different about that kind of interaction, even though we're seeing the person, if we're able to have these online chats versus just typing or talking, listening to them in our heads kind of thing, but not really seeing facial expressions and body movements. We lose something in the communication without having, like, if you didn't see me right now, if I was, let's see, I'll put the blanket up. If I was gone completely and you didn't see me, and all you heard was what I'm saying, my body language doesn't give any clues. My facial expression gives no clues to my emotions. You wouldn't know if I was happy or sad, indifferent. You wouldn't know if I was, gosh, upset, if I was hurt, up until you can see me. And then you can see facial expressions, which, being on spectrum, I know my facial expressions might not have the same kind of range as the average person. I have a little bit of what's called facial blindness. It's not extreme where I can't recognize myself typically, but if it's next to pictures of somebody who looks a lot like me, or especially my daughter or granddaughter, one of my granddaughters, actually both of them we resemble each other. But especially when we were little, those pictures can be very difficult for me to discern who is who. And it was funny because one of my granddaughter's friends, when she first saw me in the house, she thought I was my daughter. And I thought that was kind of funny. It was like going, yeah, the Xerox machine, we all look alike. I don't know how to explain it. We have some seriously strong genes in my family, I guess. On my father's side, I would say. Actually, both my parents. I think about it, because even my dad would say I resembled my mom, even though I thought I resembled him more. But yeah, it's very interesting how we have these kind of relationships. For me, I still prefer in person because my development was during the time of in-person interactions, and so I'm programmed to pick up on the subtleties of body language, facial expressions, you know, the way they're sitting, if they're fidgeting in their seats or not. Energy is felt, even if they say not a word and just sit there not moving, you can still feel their energy. And those are all important cues for me to understand what the person is trying to convey, what their true intention is, especially because people will often talk one thing and their body language is saying something completely different. And if I'm just listening to their words, I might trust what they're saying. But as soon as you add that body language, it lets me know that they're not even trusting what they're saying, that obviously what they're saying is not true, then I'm missing out on that portion of the information. And I hope that made sense, because I'm trying to make sure I covered all of the little aspects of that. But yes, so for me, I need that energetic exchange, that energetic feeling with the person in person that you can't get over the phone or through a text. I mean, the phone you have a little bit better because you can hear the voice, which can have influx in it and can give away how confident they are in their words. But you got to be really good at hearing and listening to those things if that's all your input is getting is auditory. I need the visual too. It's very important for me. But everybody's different. And now we have this younger generation that's growing up where they're having to discern that in a different way. They didn't grow up with it all being in person like I did. They grew up with much of their interactions being on the phone through text messages and video chats and such as that. And so they have to find a different way to discern the information that they're receiving, how true it is, and what they might be missing behind those words. And I don't know if that's an easy thing or if they're just losing out completely. I have no idea if that's even possible for those subtleties to be conveyed in a way other than what we need in person. Something to think about. But anyways, this video is getting probably longer than either one of us wanted it to be for this little topic. So I will end for now. Be unapologetically you. And I'll keep making videos until I just decide it doesn't work for me anymore, I suppose. Thank you so much for being a part of my show. Bye.